without further ado, we have next up
Thank you.
Andrew Yang.
Hello, everybody. Can you see and hear me okay? It's so great to be here with you, the Barack Obama Democratic Club. When I saw this, I thought to myself, it's so great that you named a club after Barack Obama. I served as an honorary ambassador of entrepreneurship and champion of change, and he inspired me and so many others. I love your neighborhood, Inwood, Morningside Heights, Washington Heights. My brother lived on 170th Street in West End for a number of years, and I worked in Columbia's hospital. I took the A train up to 168 in the regular. I'm so sorry about the violence and crimes that have occurred recently in your community on the A train, which was a train that I love dearly. It's like a teleportation device between 59th Street and 125th Street. You know, and you get on there and then it just spirits you uptown. I'm running for mayor for one reason and one reason only, that our city's in crisis, and I believe I can help us accelerate our recovery. I'm laser focused on getting the vaccine out to people even now. My campaign has over 3,500 volunteers who've been reaching out to New Yorkers trying to get vaccination information to people, because we all know it is not straightforward. There's something like between 3 and 9 websites that people are using. And then we have to have a means for people to be able to convene safely in schools, in office buildings, in restaurants and bars and theaters. In addition to being vaccinated ourselves, we just have to know that other people around us are safe and have been vaccinated. I think I can speed up this process to the tune of a number of months, which in New York City will translate to human lives, billions of dollars in economic value. I know that your neighborhood and community are struggling right now because we're all struggling. We've lost 700,000 jobs, 27,000 friends, family, and neighbors. Right now, this is the darkest time any of us have seen. The question is, how can we get out of it as quickly as possible? I believe I can speed us up. I'm someone who has activated resources both inside government, in the private sector. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a problem solver, and I'm someone who wants to work with everyone who wants to help New York City, because we're going to need all hands on deck. So appreciate everything you all do for your community. Thrilled to be here. Thank you for your activism and leadership. And I genuinely do love your neighborhoods and communities. I've spent a lot of time up there.
Thank you. So let's jump right in. Since you are an entrepreneur, talk a little bit about small business, the Small Business Job Survival Act. What are your thoughts on expanding rent stabilization to commercial properties to assist small businesses, and sort of dovetailing with that, the way that rezoning affects gentrification, not only in terms of housing affordability, but also rent affordability for small businesses. They're all related. Talk about that and what you would do about that.
They are all related, and this is an urgent crisis. This is immediate. I ran a small business in New York City myself. I talked to a small business owner in West Harlem just this morning. She runs a jewelry store. She's struggling. So in terms of immediate next steps, number one, we have to curb any regulations that are standing in the way of various small businesses. I've talked to small business owners who said they've gotten 3 visits from inspectors, but they haven't had anyone trying to help them reopen or identify resources. The second thing is I've already committed to a small business recovery czar with a goal of helping over 10,000 small businesses reopen. And if you look at the small business owners' situation, they have 2 main costs, rent and payroll. And if you talk to a small business owner, they will say, I will not reopen based upon a loan because I don't care if I owe you money or my landlord money. Like I can only reopen if I think I'm going to make money on a monthly basis. So the only way you can see to it that a small business actually has light at the end of the tunnel is if you work out an arrangement with their landlord where their monthly rent comes down. And the argument to the landlord is very clear. You are not going to get a new tenant. It is either work something out with this tenant where you're getting a fraction of the rent, or you're likely to get 0. And so that has to be the arrangement that we forge for thousands of small businesses so that the businesses have a chance to stay open. And then we need to be a partner in reopening. I've committed to a People's Bank that we announced today in Harlem that will commit $100 million in direct investment that will go out to community development financial institutions in microloans and grants. And this is the kind of measure we're going to need to try and help your businesses survive. Small businesses are the lifeblood of not just your community, excuse me, but every community in the city. They employ most people. Each small business represents the life's work of a family very often. Um, and it breaks my heart that we're not doing more to help right now.
Okay, thank you. So talk a little bit about housing, what you would do, what would be your actual plan, not your sort of lofty goals for affordable housing, both defining what affordable means and also addressing some of the really serious issues with NYCHA. We've had several questions in the chat about all of the many ways in which the NYCHA system is incredibly broken and that vouchers really aren't going to fix it, that we need something else. So what's your plan for housing?
Yeah, so first to NYCHA. The New York City is one of the worst landlords in the city, which is reprehensible, really. And if you look at the physical needs of NYCHA developments, you're looking at about $40 billion over time, which has been building up for years and decades. Now, I had a conversation with now President Joe Biden about this very topic a number of months ago. Not that long ago, it was like, mid 2020. And he said to me, it's like, Andrew, we need to literally rebuild the country. We need a new deal. We can see right now that the federal government is committing hundreds of billions of dollars to various projects. And I'm going to suggest that $48 billion to NYCHA should be at the top of the list, where we can modernize and make sustainable the housing for hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers, 400,000 or 500,000 New Yorkers. And this should be one of the major projects that is being funded by the federal government. Now, there are smaller changes we can make, but a lot, like I like to think big. If you're going to spend $1.9 trillion on COVID recovery, I think making the case for tens of billions of dollars to go to New York City public housing is a very strong argument. And in some of these cases, again, like we're owed this money on multiple fronts. Now, outside of NYCHA, there are a lot of problems, but one major problem is that you have a lot of landlords that are violating various rent stabilization rules to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in excess rent being charged annually. And you know that that's the case because a nonprofit recently caught $100 million in fraudulent charges. So you know that like the actual charges are significantly higher. Now you have ways that you can change those practices because right now they're not being enforced. They're essentially self-enforced, which is a recipe for disaster. So what you do is you signal to the landlords who are meant to operate on this rent stabilization regime. You say to them, hey, we're going to go through the state data and we're going to levy very, very significant fines and penalties on the 10 worst abusers we find. You have 1 year to try and get your practices in line and then follow through. So this would be a game changer. I think we could save tenants hundreds of millions of dollars very quickly. The third thing is that you need to actually build genuinely affordable housing. Right now, affordable is not affordable, which is a major problem. And when you try and develop this housing, you run into any number of obstacles. And even if you succeed, then again, the units aren't very affordable. So what do you need to do? You need to reward at a higher level the deeply, excuse me, the deeply affordable option in the inclusionary housing rules so that more developers choose that option. You reward them at higher levels for doing so. And then you need to very quickly try to convert some of the unused hotel properties right now and to a lesser extent, commercial properties that right now are going vacant. They are being bought by BlackRock and various private equity firms because they know a deal when they see one. But what we have to do is we have to get in there and say, look, the city, and we should be trying to purpose some of this into affordable housing as quickly as possible, because you're looking at a transformation of the physical plant of New York City. Mm-hmm. Right now, commercial spaces are 82% unoccupied in Midtown Manhattan. Hotels are 90% unoccupied. And even if we are successful in rapid recovery, you're not looking at 82% or 90% going down to 10 or 15% over like the next 12 to 24 months. So we should be accepting reality and helping, frankly, some of these landlords and operators accept reality, and then convert some of these to affordable housing units as quickly as possible, which would involve relaxing certain restrictions, which we should be for. So one restriction as an example, if you convert a hotel, we should be relaxing the rule that everything needs to have a kitchen. I think that there are a lot of New Yorkers right now who would accept like a slightly different type of housing if it could help them become a homeowner more quickly, cooperatively.
Okay. So there are several questions in the chat that are related to each other in as much as they address the really crushing poverty that so many people are experiencing, ranging from people salvaging for food through trash cans at supermarkets to heaps of rags in the subway that are not rags but homeless people, to the crushing issue of mental health that is driving our homelessness to levels that we haven't seen since the 80s. So what's your plan as mayor for dealing with both mental health services and also this crippling poverty that is just killing New Yorkers?
I want you all to regard me as the recovery mayor, but also as the anti-poverty mayor. I've committed $1 billion in economic relief to alleviate extreme poverty in New York City. And in my mind, we're going to get those resources back over and over again. Because the fact is, if you keep someone in a more secure and stable situation and environment, you keep them off of our streets. And if when they hit our streets, we end up spending tens of thousands of dollars a year per individual in many, many cases. Some of our institutions are very, very costly. And so this $1 billion, in my mind, is the right move. It's a smart move. We need to supplement that with a massive investment in mental health resources. So you're talking about public safety concerns that are rising from people who are struggling mentally, and I agree, that's priority one. But I'm going to suggest that the last study I saw said that 35% of us right now are struggling with some sense of anxiety, depression, mental illness, and that's going to be much worse among our children who are going to show up to school, not just a year behind, but in many cases, they're going to need help. So we should be investing at like an unprecedented scale on mental health resources, both to help the people that are struggling on our streets, but also our kids. We need more mental health counselors and guidance counselors and social workers and fewer security guards in our schools. So that's, but that's actually just part of my anti-poverty agenda. I'm just going to say a couple more things on this front. Number 2 and 3, 29%.
That's unfortunately.
Oh, that's time? I'm out of time entirely?
Yeah, that was 12 minutes.
No, time flew. That was so much fun. Well, if you want to hear about some of my other plans for high-speed internet for the 29% of New Yorkers who don't have it, to try and get the 12% of New Yorkers who don't have access to a bank account, access you don't pay check cashers and money lenders and everything else, please do check out my platform. Okay. And thank you for all the work that you do. I really, really would love to work with you all. I'm running for mayor to help improve the way of life of everyone in your community.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all. Have a great night.